Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, AGNDD intelliReport topic. At least 1,850 protesters reported killed in Iran. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this partially AI-generated article-based video. At least 1,850 protesters reported killed in Iran as Trump says help is on its way. CNN. Updated 10:31 a.m. EST. Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. Here's the latest. U.S. President Donald Trump has canceled meetings with Iranian officials and told protesters help is on its way amid a brutal crackdown by Tehran. At least 1,850 protesters have now been killed in more than 2 weeks of demonstrations, according to a U.S.-based rights group. Trump will meet with his senior national security team later today to discuss his options in Iran after yesterday, announcing that countries that do business with Iran will face a 25% tariff. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said he believes the Iranian regime could be facing its last days and weeks. Some users of landline and mobile phones in Iran have been able to call abroad for the first time more than 4 days after the government shut down communications. But internet access remains cut off. Trump says all meetings with Iran are off until crackdown on protesters ends. From CNN's Kevin Liptak. President Donald Trump said today he's canceled any meetings with Iranian officials as a crackdown on protesters continues, suggesting the window of diplomacy that he saw opening days ago had closed. In a message on Truth Social, Trump encouraged protesters to keep up the demonstrations and said, "Help is on the way." "Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions," Trump wrote. "Save the names of the killers and abusers, they will pay a big price," he went on. "I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way." He ended by writing, "MIGA, or Make Iran Great Again." On Sunday, Trump suggested he was open to talks with the Iranian regime after receiving communication over the weekend. He said a meeting was being set up. But his message 2 days later indicated he no longer believes talks would be fruitful. Protester death toll in Iran climbs to 1,850, U.S.-based rights group says. From CNN's Billy Stockwell. At least 1,850 protesters have been killed in more than 2 weeks of anti-government demonstrations in Iran, according to U.S.-based human rights activists' news agency, HRANA. This is a significant increase from the group's previous toll of around 500. Shrana also said at least 16,784 had been arrested. It remains unclear whether Hrana's tally fully captures the scale of casualties and arrests, given the authorities' shutdown of internet access and telephone lines. CNN is unable to independently verify Hrana's death toll or arrest figures. Trump to meet with national security team to discuss options in Iran. From CNN's Kevin Liptak. When President Donald Trump meets with his senior national security team later Tuesday to discuss his options in Iran, he'll face a complex set of decisions for how to proceed, all balanced by an equally complex set of risks. Trump must first decide whether to allow diplomacy time to proceed after his foreign envoy Steve Witkoff received conciliatory messages from Iran's foreign minister over the weekend. Some senior officials interpreted the outreach as a sign the regime was ready to talk and have encouraged the president to seize the opportunity to strike a deal, the contours of which remain unclear. Other officials have been less sanguine, believing Tehran is simply looking to delay an attack, which Trump has been threatening for more than 2 weeks. Trump has said he won't necessarily wait for talks with Iran before moving ahead. If he decides to go that course, he will have to consider another set of decisions. Should Trump decide on firing a missile into Iran, he will have to decide which targets to strike, remaining elements of Iran's nuclear program, government buildings in Tehran, or other facilities connected to the country's security services. Any strike would likely be several days from happening, one official said. If Trump elects to carry out something short of a strike, he has another set of options in front of him: cyber attacks, new sanctions, or efforts to bolster internet connectivity. Each cascading decision will be weighed against potential responses from Iran. U.S. officials believe any strikes inside Iran could lead to retaliatory action on American facilities in the region, an outcome Iranian officials have already threatened. Officials have also voiced concern that a forceful response could strengthen support for the regime in a rally behind the flag effect. It's less clear how Iran might respond to lesser actions, and not taking any action at all could make Trump's threats appear empty, officials said. Pro-regime demonstrators point to foreign interventions behind unrest. From CNN's Billy Stockwell. Pro-regime demonstrators in the Iranian capital Tehran have acknowledged the economic plight gripping the country, but backed authorities' line that foreign interventions have amplified the unrest. "I believe the unrest was generally a plot by the United States and Israel, but people do have issues that need to be heard," an unnamed pro-government protester told Reuters at a counter-rally yesterday. Protests over the government's handling of the economy began more than 2 weeks ago in Tehran's bazaars, but spread to more than 180 cities and towns, morphing into general protests against the regime. In response, counter-rallies in support of the government took place across Iran on Monday. Another pro-regime protester acknowledged that Iran was facing excessive inflation, but added, "All that said, I am here participating to defend my country." Iranian authorities have sought to differentiate between economic protesters and those calling for regime change, branding the latter as rioters and foreign-backed mercenaries. A third pro-regime protester said, "The first step is to speak with determination about possible foreign interventions. The next step is to respond to the rightful objections that we the people have regarding the state of the economy. Talk to the people and answer them with honesty," the protester added. Here's what Trump has said so far about the protests in Iran. From CNN's Catherine Nichols. U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly issued warnings to Iranian leadership over the last few weeks, threatening that his country could intervene if authorities continue their violence against protesters. Here's a look at some of the exchanges between Trump and Iranian leadership since the start of this year. January 2nd. After several days of protests in Iran, and after a number of people have been killed in clashes, Trump warns that the U.S. will intervene if protesters continue to be killed. Iran's national security chief Ali Larijani tells Trump on X that U.S. interference would cause disruption across the entire region and the destruction of American interests. January 4th. Trump again warns that if Iranian authorities start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says that his country will not yield to the enemy and that rioters should be put in their place. January 8th. Trump repeats his claim that the U.S. will hit Iran very hard should violence against protesters continue, telling radio host Hugh Hewitt, "I have let them know that if they start killing people, which they tend to do during their riots, we're going to hit them very hard." January 9th. Trump posts a video on social media claiming that the Iranian regime has lost control of its second-largest city without evidence of this actually happening. Khamenei calls on Trump to focus on the problems of his own country in a televised address. There are some agitators who want to please the American president by destroying public property. A united Iranian people will defeat all enemies, Khamenei says. January 10th. Trump says that the U.S. is ready to help the Iranian people in a post on Truth Social. Iran is looking at freedom. Perhaps like never before, the USA stands ready to help, he writes. January 11th. Iran's parliamentary speaker warns that authorities will treat U.S. military and commercial bases as targets for retaliation if it intervenes militarily in Iranian affairs. Trump says that Iran called to negotiate with the U.S. the day prior. January 12th. Khamenei's official X account posts a cartoon depicting Trump as a crumbling sarcophagus, with a message saying, "This one too will be overthrown." Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says that his country is ready to negotiate with the U.S. based on mutual respect and interests. Later in the day, Trump announces a 25% tariff on countries that do business with Iran. CNN's Mostafa Salem, Tim Lister, Billy Stockwell, Nadine Ibrahim, Kit Maher, Chris Lau, Piper Hudspeth Blackburn, Helen Regan, Banafsha Kinush, and Elizabeth Buchwald contributed to this reporting. Dutch Foreign Minister summons Iranian ambassador to The Hague. From CNN's Zahid Mahmoud. The Dutch Foreign Minister has summoned Iran's ambassador to protest Iran's brutal crackdown of anti-government protests, the first European government to announce such a move. "I have summoned the Iranian ambassador to formally protest the excessive violence against peaceful protesters, large-scale arbitrary arrests and internet shutdowns," David Van Weel said on Tuesday in a statement posted on X. Van Weel called on Tehran to respect fundamental rights and immediately restore internet access after Iranians have been cut off for at least 108 hours, according to internet monitoring group NetBlocks. Iran's foreign ministry summoned the ambassadors of the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and France yesterday to protest their government's public support for the protests, according to an Iranian state broadcaster. At least 500 demonstrators, including 9 minors, have been killed, and more than 10,000 have been arrested since the protest began in late December, according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. CNN cannot independently verify those figures. Iranian state-affiliated media say more than 100 members of the security forces have been killed. CNN's Mohammad Tawfiq and Hira Humayun contributed to this report. Iranian foreign minister criticizes Germany's Merz after he suggested regime could collapse. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has called on the German government to have some shame after Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the Iranian regime could be facing its last days and weeks. Of all governments, the one in Germany is perhaps the worst place to address human rights, Araghchi posted on X Tuesday. The reason is simple. Its blatant double standards over the past years have obliterated any shred of credibility. Merz earlier criticized the Iranian government, saying that when a regime can only stay in power through violence, then it has de facto reached the end. Araghchi said Berlin should end its unlawful interference in our region, while condemning Merz's support for Israel during its war in Gaza, following Hamas's deadly October 7, 2023, attacks on southern Israel.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD intelliReport, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.